All right, thanks people for joining. We're gonna get started in another minute. Let's let more people file in, and once we get critical mass, we'll jump right into it. So thanks for joining early. Let's just sit tight for another minute. We'll get started. Thanks. Okay, thanks again everyone for joining. This week's webinar on MarketSurge is a stock talk on real-time analysis with us coaches. Here's a quick disclaimer. It's just highlighting that everything we'll be showing you today is for informational purposes only. Please do not use any of it as financial advice. I'll give you some time to read that. Go ahead. Okay, and these are the speakers for today. Myself, my name is Sunny. I'm one of the premium product coaches here. And Nick, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Nikkolas Rosales. I'm one of the premium product coaches here as well with MarketSurge.
Excellent. So just a quick agenda and just a little preface so you can understand what we're trying to do here. We're here to just really kind of show you behind the curtain how we look at some of these stocks. Those of you who have IBD Live, it might feel a little bit familiar, almost like a mini IBD Live session. But we wanted to show you what we look at, myself and Nico. And we just want to preface that again, we're not telling you what to buy or what to sell. We're not giving you financial advice. We're just strictly showing you on the chart what on the charts what's already there available. What it's revealing, what MarketSurge is revealing about these stocks, the hot stocks that everyone's been looking at. And then hopefully you can glean from that and take away a few nuggets of something that you maybe weren't looking at before. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Coach
No, no, I
Nikkolas.
think no, I think you hit the nail on the head. Again, we're just kind of give you guys some insight on how we analyze things. I know earlier this year, Sonny and I did like a good trade, bad trade. We want to provide you guys more content and context in terms of how we evaluate things, and shed some things to light in terms of some things that you guys may be missing and provide some golden nuggets with the overall research of utilizing the power of market search.
Excellent. Okay, great. So yeah, we're gonna jump into a live demo. That's pretty much the whole session is gonna be a live demo as we look at stocks real time, and then we'll just provide some key takeaways if there's some time at the end. So let's jump into it. I have the charts loaded already here that you should be able to see. Okay, and then yeah, Coach Nico, you want to tell us what's your first stock that you want to queue up?
Yeah, the first stock we're going to queue up, it's going to be Palantir, PLTR. We're
Palantir.
going to
Excellent.
start off a little hot here. We just want to go ahead and kind of go what the industry's talking about. I'm going to go ahead and I'm a big, huge news person here. I do own Palantir. I do have to disclose that to you, for compliance reasons here. So we're just going to kind of go back in terms of how things have been historically, and then how do we look at it now? So I'm going to kind of essentially give you the best of both worlds. So in terms of Palantir here, if you look at it early February of 25, excuse me, whether you know or not, they had like huge reports of the defense budget cuts. And even the CEO kind of shared like a selling plan. Okay. Now in April of 25, if you go to April of 25, NATO acquires Palantir's smart system. Now we're going to start looking for a shift. A shift here is kind of pretty much what's going to be happening, and as you can see, that did happen in terms of it moving beautifully off the 10-day moving average. Is that green line of that? If I'm not mistaken, that's the 10-day, correct, Sonny?
That's correct.
Wonderful. And then if you look at it here, we had an earnings report there as well, and then just look at that monster volume, kind of based um, off of that news. Okay. And now this just goes to show you that news-driven content, especially if you're within like a sensitive kind of sector or overall industry, especially in defense, we've historically come to learn that it's a little volatile. So that's one thing I want to go ahead and kind of share. But if you're utilizing the tool here, if you look on that right-hand side panel, we have that related information panel. Sunny had it popped out right now, but if you go ahead and pop that out, you'll see the news here. You'll see kind of where I'm getting the news sources from at the top under edit news here. It gives you these different news outlets for investors.com or investors business daily, excuse me. If you do want to see that news, it will hit you with a paywall, but all the other news sources should there be free. Now, since we're on this right-hand side panel, another thing I want to be looking for, because I have a lot of conviction with Palantir. I know that they are not in the best industry group as of now. They're ranked number 43 out of 197 industry groups. And if we kind of come current with the market, if we click on owners and funds at the top there, we'll go ahead and get a sense of kind of that industry group itself. You'll see right here, you'll see what IBD mutual funds index actually own the stock. What mutual funds that we track. We track a mutual fund. It's zero, MUTI. Those are kind of our most liked funds, I would say, or I want to use the word supported, but that mutual fund is something that we essentially track. It's about 25 to 30 different mutual funds. I'd like to see about 2 to 3 of those funds that make up that overall fund kind of be within the stocks that I'm looking at. And then if you want to deep dive a little bit more, you can. You don't have to click it now, but there's show fund ownership. You can see all the funds that currently own the stock. And then I usually have some that are flagged that are my favorites outside of that realm. That way I can see which ones we track specifically with Investors Business Daily using zero MUTI, and then which ones I like as well. Another thing I'm going to do here as well is using the tool. I know Sunny's going to switch it to zero MUTI. Just go ahead and show them that fund for a second here. Again, this is something that we do track. You can see like the funds in the index and then overall news and the climate of that fund. If you really wanted a deep dive, you can do this approach. I don't always do so, but sometimes I do like to go ahead and just kind of toggle between it. That way I can go ahead and gain some more insight. Let's switch it back to Palantir, please. Now, another thing I'm going to be looking at is going to be I want to view the stocks within the overall industry group. I want to see how they kind of behave because historically we see when leaders have become laggards due to the market correction and laggards have become leaders, we see and we track what we call industry rotation. If we look at the view of the stocks within the industry, you can see Palantir is actually leading the pack. It is the best performing stock within this overall industry group. This is something that I generally typically look for. And as you can see, you have Shopify, Path, Digital, Datadog, etc. And when these stocks actually move here, we do tend to see them move kind of in packs. It's not one stock, it's not two, it's like 1 to 3, 1 to 4 that really push that industry group into rotating. Now, to kind of just deep dive into Palantir as of now here, I'm going to go ahead and collapse everything, give you guys a clear look at this view of this chart here. And currently here, if you hover over the most current pattern using our pattern recognition algorithm, it'll say, hey, this is a cupwood handle. It is a stage 5 kind of base, stage 5 pattern. As if you're not familiar with the methodology here, we like to get in stocks at an early stage bases or patterns that base and patterns interchangeable. We like to get in stages 1, 2, or 3 because the probability is going to lessen when a breakout occurs if it's a later stage base. Now, I'm going to be a little bit more on the defensive, especially when kind of pyramiding into a Palantir at the moment. It is a pretty decent buy price. It has pulled back a little bit now, and if you look, it's trading in that red shaded area, which is more in that sell area here. But with me having conviction, it hasn't really broken through that 50-day moving average, which is that red line. So at least for me, it's like, hey, it's finding some supports utilizing that moving average there. So I'm gonna go ahead and track this. I have such I got in this stock pretty early. So I have a lot of room to kind of to play with essentially. I'm gonna use a term that we don't like to use lightly or loosely at that is gonna be kind of risky, you know. And I definitely kind of play earnings. I know earnings are due within the next 20 days, so I'm gonna track that as well. That's gonna be in the back of my mind, how their earnings gonna be. And if we look on the weekly chart, we can see kind of the estimates that are coming up on the left-hand side at the bottom here. But if we look at it from a year-over-year standpoint, the estimates look good year over year. Also at the bottom, you can go ahead and see how they look from, the current quarter to the previous quarter. It's looking great. Strong growth in terms of earnings per share, percent change, and then strong sales percent change. So Palantir is something that I did want to highlight with you and kind of analyze that stock. I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to you, Sonny. Here, let's go ahead and see what's on your radar here. What are you currently looking at?
Yeah, that's great, Nick. Thanks for showing them that. Definitely, I like to take a look at Oracle. I think that's been fresh on a lot of people's minds, especially with the recent OpenAI deal. And I believe today they just had a announced deal with was it AMD to provide chips. So
That's correct.
it's really been on some massive contracts that have or partnerships that have come out, so to speak, and it's really pushed the company as far as price movement into a new range. We can see here, I believe this was on yeah, September 12th when they announced that partnership. It's really moved that price range all the way up towards the 300 range, where it was sitting in the mid 200s before. Just some kind of some context for those of you, for the benefit of doubt, those who don't know about Oracle. It's a massive it used to be a massive old school enterprise software and database company, right? They would install software and have a database at physical locations, but then that moved to cloud storage where they have that where they can host, right? Host the data. But it kind of became primed to be part of this AI wave because of their global data centers and massive, enterprise software. They were perfectly positioned to be able to just have AI hardware added to those to that storage and to those databases, and that basically made it unprecedented for it to be a key player in this AI wave, right? So you got OpenAI. I think it was a $300 billion deal over 5 years. I think that was like that might have been one of the historic or most unprecedented deals so far as we go through this AI wave, right? So that was here, and then today they had a deal with AMD announced. Um, with that said, I think a lot of some of the speculation going on also has to do with this continued sort of spree of AI deals that are flashing in the headlines, right? They're also leaning on speculation that Meta might come out and also, try to strike a deal with Oracle as well. Um, if we see here, as far as the chart action, you see some, sort of like steps of it moving higher and higher over time. But really, the two big moves was over here on the 13th as well as on September 12th. Um, as far as some things that kind of pushed it into the forefront is the truth is the news that came out on the 12th. It's not the first time that they've worked with OpenAI, right? It's been a long sort of relationship, for a lack of a better analogy. It's almost like they just had like this wine and dine sort of relationship over the past year since 2024 when OpenAI has worked closely with them, and now it's almost like they're cementing this relationship with this massive deal on September 12th that really pushed it into the 300 range, right? Now, if we're looking at the chart action specifically, like Coach Nico said earlier, you can see here that it does tell you that this is an early stage base. It's a stage two base, fresh stage two base, right? We see here it wasn't a stage two earlier, but the price action cut back and dipped below the depth of the previous base. So this was considered a pullback. This would be back to stage one, and now we have a stage two base. So still early on in the gravy train, hopefully, in that sense, right? We hope that that means that there's a higher probability that it may break out with more steam ahead versus if we're in a later stage base. I like that you can see the recent price action here. Let's go to the daily chart for a second. You can see here it's actually consolidating, right? Usually you would want to see whether like the market wants to fill that gap off of the breakout from that news. But we can see here it's somewhat of a healthy consolidation on this upper range, right? The jury is still out on where this might be headed, but we can at least see that there's somewhat of consolidation consolidating in this upper range of price that it's established since that breakout. So I do like to see that. As far as whether to again, we're not here to tell you to buy or sell, but at least from a MarketSurge methodology, we like to see that there's a base pattern set up. So hopefully what this spells out is that there might be, as this continues to consolidate, that our algorithm will pick up a new base that's formed, and that would provide a new, resistance level to pierce through where you can consider picking it up. Now, if you're already in it, of course, we know that off of the last breakout, it hit our power from pivot flag. So those of you who don't know, whether it's on the daily chart or on this weekly chart where it shows 33%, that's our power from pivot flag where traditionally, right, if you look at these off of the pattern, we have a 3-to-1 profit loss ratio. So from the breakout, you got where you want to consider get in optimally, right? And then you would want to take profits at 20% or cut losses between 5 to 8%. Those are static risk management rules or zones on our charts. Now, there was always exception to that where O'Neill noticed some stocks are just going to go on a monster run, right? They're just going to keep going. And how we identify that is if the stock breaks out uh, over 20% or higher within a 3-week time frame from the breakout, we consider that a sharp move. Or in this case, the real term is power from pivot, right? Is how we identify it. And you can identify that by seeing any green flags on these charts. And when that happens, the traditional rule is to hold it for about 8 weeks instead of just taking the fat off the table and calling it a win, right? Because you want to see if you could capture more upsides, such as in this case, we see that it's made a sharp move, but it also has started establishing a new price range. So if you're already in it, you may want to consider holding it for 8 weeks. It's not a perfect science, okay? We don't have a crystal ball here, but IBD methodology would be to consider holding it for some time and reestablishing when to take your profits off the table. So it's Oracle's got that going for it, and of course we like that it's like I said before, it's establishing, consolidating in that new range. So we do like to see that. Hopefully a new pattern pops up there, and we're off to the races. Let me see if there was anything else I wanted to talk about on my notes here about that. Um, Oh, the other thing that we like to see, as I said earlier, was this sort of stepping action, right? There was multiple breakouts, almost like base on bases, right, over the years, the last 2, 3 years. So we like to see that it's kind of been steady. It's not just something that, maybe like an IPO that just shoots straight up and then you kind of have to fear for life if that's a peak or if it's topping action, right? So something like this is quite nice to see. So I hope that this consolidation kind of moves out and then makes a new base for us to kind of consider jumping into it. The other thing that I want to highlight as far as what MarketSurge reveals to us is one of my favorite pieces of data on MarketSurge is this number of funds section over here. So this section here, it tells us a story, right? Quarter over quarter, it tells us a total number of mutual funds that owns the stock. So when we're able to have a timeline like this, it gives us an idea of progression, right? Have there been more and more funds getting into the stock, or is it the opposite, right? So here you're going to get 4 quarters, but if you open up this related info panel and click on owners and funds, you're going to get 8 quarters over here. Okay. So I like to see that there's a nice progression. We see consolidation happening over here after the big gap up. And from there, hopefully it's off to the races with a new pattern. Back to you, Nick. What's another one you want to go with?
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of kind of what you're going over,
Sure.
Oracle, I'm glad
Yep.
you highlighted this. I know their potential kind of meta deal is upwards of $20 billion cloud computing with AI infrastructure, and I even think their AMD deal is what 50,000 kind of GPUs. So that's something
Yeah.
to look forward to. Could definitely push this into new heights. And then I know within the next week, or if I'm not like 1 to 5 days, they have that their global summit, is I believe, or their financial meeting, world. So that's one thing that can push Oracle to new heights. I just want to go ahead and add to that. And just kind of speaking on that AI model, let's just go ahead and pick up an Nvidia,
Okay,
everyone's
great
favorite
stock.
hot stock this year.
Yep.
Great. You can we can go ahead and kind of close that down. Perfect. So as you can see here, Nvidia has just been a monster this year. A lot of great news, a lot of heavy insider buying and him insider selling at that. Nvidia has just been kind of a game changer, so to speak here. I know, with early kind of tariffs this year, they had kind of some open source risks with China in March of this year. They had a huge crackdown, kind of midsummer, and then kind of August of this year. If you go ahead and click on the chart, for August sometime of this year, you can see kind of that turnaround, from summer, from kind of the summer until now. And then if you kind of see from August, pulled back a little bit, did close beneath those moving averages here, but did draw a nice pattern there. Um, if you can go ahead and see here, beautiful pattern. It is pulling back now. That's one thing that's kind of, I wouldn't use the word term worry, but it's a little volatile. Look at that. Look at the volume. It's just monstrous today. 104.4 million in terms of volume, about 12% kind of projection to close, compared to its 50-day. But one thing I wanted to pull up, and I do this for a lot of my equities here, is within the system we have what we call the comparison charts. We're gonna go ahead and pull that up, and I definitely like to compare them. Nvidia here, this is pretty much from 2024 to 2025, an exact year. And then I'd like to go ahead and pull up the individual kind of indexes or indices, such as the S&P 500. I like to go ahead and do the NASDAQ and then the NYSE. Now, if we look at that, it's just been just phenomenal. The zero NDQC is not too far behind, but from October of last year until October today, Nvidia is up 32.49%, in terms of just kind of performance, which I think is great. If you would have just go ahead and bought an index, you kind of see where you would be at for the year. But something like this is just definitely pushing to new heights. So Nvidia is something that I definitely love to look at. I do own this stock. Again, we have to disclose whichever ones we have within our portfolio. So I do have to disclose that. And even like some news happening now or developing news over the last few weeks, if you want to go back to the chart, the US approves, NVIDIA chips exports to the UAE. So, kind of fueling AI infrastructure. All that's going to kind of be news driven. And then one thing I do like to use here is going to be we have a checklist, according to William O'Neill, that Can Slim IBD methodology. You can see, what would be your ideal kind of Can Slim stock or ideal IBD methodology stock. And as you can see here, this one checks all the boxes. This is definitely something that I love to kind of look for. They're profitable. The gross margins are beautiful. Their revenue's great. Their year over year kind of earnings growth is phenomenal. From my understanding, they do have some low debt. If you click on the weekly chart, I don't know if we have that exact figure, but from what I've compiled here, they have some very low debt, as you can see. For being a huge company, making these huge moves and closing these deals, this is definitely something that I'd like to look for. And then it checks all my boxes in terms of Can Slim. This is definitely ideal, stock, at least that I like to kind of jump into. And then even the overall industry group itself, has some very strong earnings per share ratings, very strong composite, and then strong RS rating. And then there is a little number of funds drop off, as Sunny pointed out to you with Oracle. We have a trailing 4 quarters on the chart itself, and it's at 86.78 in 2024. And then 2025, it's at 88.48. So there's a little minor drop off, but That doesn't kind of worry me per se too much. Um, Especially if you look in the bottom left, those quarter over quarter, excuse me, earnings per share and sales. I mean, just a big sea of blue. Majority of it's over 20% is generally what we look for. When we're comparing that current quarter to the current quarter or to the quarter prior, so we have an apples to apples comparison. We use the current quarter compared to the same quarter the year prior. So we're comparing that 24 figure and 68 cents to that 25 figure of $1.05, which is 54% increase in earnings per share percent change. I mean, that's exactly what I want to see, exactly what I look for. This is something that definitely checks my boxes. And then just kind of utilizing the tool here. Um, it's going to be highlighted in across various reports as well. If you look on the right hand side, we have the related information panel, and then if you look, I believe you can add a technical tab. I think Sunny already has it set up here. You can see how the stock is performing above or below moving averages, and then you can actually add a new tab and see what other lists this stock is actually on. So you can go ahead and just add your own as Sunny did as he's showing you premium list, and then go ahead and kind of show you what list Nvidia is featured on. So now we're going ahead and say, hey, we have a great kind of understanding, curiosity. We have some figures and metrics to back up what we're thinking. Now, what other reports is this on? Just look at the month November alone. All tight areas, IBD Live Ready, they're looking at that IBD 50 index. It hit the new high. It was on our blue dot report as of yesterday, and then it's on some other 10-day and 21-day SMA reports. So this is just going to go ahead and add to that conviction, give you some value add with this equity specifically. That's all I have in terms of NVIDIA, what I'm looking at, how I gauge it. And then obviously, we're just when the news is released, that can make or break a few things here. So that's how I definitely want to analyze it, kind of what people are talking about within the realm and within the industry.
That's great, Nick. I want to add just a little bit more to the context here, just because we do talk about Nvidia a lot, and I'm sure for a lot of you that's like the stock these days for the past year or two since the AI wave. Um, I remember maybe it was about a year ago before DeepSeek was launched in December,
Hmm.
the Chinese AI, that you would see these crazy earnings figures, like triple digits actually,
Yep.
and people would really rely on Nvidia as the market leader to kind of prop up the market, so to speak, to kind of guide us like which direction is the market headed? Is it going to bring us to usher us into new wave in a sense for the AI race? But I remember also that uh, you know, the turnover for AI is so massive, right? Like they're not just looking at the capability now, they're banking on the capability of the future, right? And if there's no guidance for massive potential for growth, earnings, or new products or whatever, even having a decent quote unquote 20% from CanSlim of O'Neill's traditional metric occasionally wasn't good enough for some of these stocks, right? Because they're looking for something that will really tell us, that this company is going to keep going, like it's going to be a rocket ship, keep going up and up. Like we can kind of see here, like this massive move, and you can see that there's been triple digit earnings for some time, but it's really tapered off here. Where you can see the action, the earnings lines trying to, you see this green earnings line, it starts to smooth out. You see, it's almost like an exponential sort of rise, but it's starting to smooth out a bit there too. So I agree with Nico though. Obviously, you want to have strong earnings and sales, and this would be perfect for just about any industry that you're looking at. But in the case of the AI wave and the current landscape that we're in, um, you know, this here down to here might be a little telling, as well as perhaps some of how the consolidation is happening rather than just more of this stepping ladder of base on base on base. On top of that, we also know, of course, with the new presidency, that there's been a lot of tariff action happening. So that explains a lot of this sort of, pullback, right? So I just want to add it a little bit more color to you guys of kind of what to expect with NVIDIA and what to expect with the AI space of what people are looking for, maybe what institutional investors are looking for as well. Yeah.
I appreciate that, Sonny. Sonny added that Bob Ross flair and painted a better picture for you guys. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, so with that, let me move over to another. giant player in a space that I'm sure all of you know, Apple, right? Now, the fun thing about Apple is I'm sure those of you who have our baseline routine of MarketSurge, right? If you go to open stock IDs, which is pretty much what everyone clicks on when they come here, and it was sitting on the near pivot list, or I guess it still is now, depending on the price action real time, but it's been sitting in this near pivot report for I want to say like over a week or 2 weeks now. I think it was on there last week too, and people were just waiting for it to break out or something to just move it into that pivot range where people can consider, buying it off of a new high, right? Now, let's take a look just as far as context of how has Apple fared in its the past few months, right? iPhone 17 was released, right? That was a massive event. Their pro models, their top end models have been doing quite well with demand. But allegedly their budget models have not quite met up demand. Like if you've been come from I don't know, the iPhone SE to I think it's called the iPhone Air or 17 Air now. There's been mixed demand with that, so that has not been enough of a catalyst, I feel like, to usher it to the next price range. Also, we know that Apple has announced that they're getting into the tech glasses space. I think it's like the competitions with Meta. Didn't you say, Nico, you have some of those glasses too?
I do. I play softball on Thursdays in a league here, and definitely like to go ahead and just kind of slap those on and get some outtakes and things of that sort. But the glasses are cool. I really love them. I do wear them out in public. I just, I'm very into tech, wearable tech, like you mentioned. I'm pretty sure you're gonna get into wearable tech in a second. So I don't want to spoil that for
Mhm.
you guys here. But the glasses are great. They are a little bit pricey. I do have an iPhone. I have the Pro model. So I'm definitely adding kind of the value to something like this, but absolutely the glasses are amazing.
Yeah, so clearly Apple is, they're venturing off into a space that will have stiff competition from Meta that we already know about, that is an established player there. So there's those two things going on. As far as, maybe what might usher it into the new space, to kind of go a little deeper into wearable tech, which some of you maybe have already dived into this. But essentially they're looking into expanding on the sort of health capabilities of some of this wearable tech, right? Like right now, if you have an Apple Watch, you should be able to, get your blood pressure and some of these other metrics. Well, apparently they're going to have some new tech. I believe it has to do with using light to scan through the skin and be able to see like glucose levels, like blood sugar, and maybe check for, stuff like diabetes. And then that might be opening up the doors to other ways that they can actually, check your health real time while you're wearing wearable tech. So those are some AI capabilities, and again, we're always talking about AI right now because that's the hot landscape. That's some of the AI capabilities that some of these investors are hoping they can get news of down the road, or at least or a teaser of what can be possible. And then from there, along with, of course, earnings coming up in 16 days, that's really going to spell out, I think, as a catalyst of what will either break through new highs or kind of sit here and wait. It really feels like the character of Apple right now for the past couple weeks, as it's been sitting on this stage one base after this pullback here, that it's really just waiting for some news to usher it into a breakout. So jury is still out on that, but I would say that's kind of what I have to say for it. As far as moving averages, I like to keep a 10 and 21 day on my charts. If you're not sure how to do that, just remember you can go on the wrench, go to moving averages, you can add some moving averages, eight, or I guess I had mine on eight for another presentation. But generally, the industry standard is 8 or 10, and then a 21 day. So you can see here, it's kind of just been following along on this 21 day line. It did pierce through the other day, and then it's just sitting right below it. So it's currently trading at the top of the range. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I would say if I had to categorize it in one line, they're trying to have more AI integration with their new products, but we're hoping that some of these quiet catalysts like the glasses or the health, as far as AI components, can shine through and break it into new highs along with some strong earnings, hopefully, for Apple. What's one of your last ones you want to go over, Nico?
Yeah, great overview on Apple. Love that. One of the last ones I'm going to go over is going to be CrowdStrike. It's been on,
CrowdStrike. Okay.
yeah, been on my radar for some time now. Whether you know or not, there was a huge outage and fallout in terms of Windows. I believe sometime in 2024, which actually kind of hopped into a legal and litigation exposure with Delta. They sued CrowdStrike over a 2024 outage, alleging gross negligence, kind of everything with the computers. We live in this world where everything's kind of automated. And one thing I like to say, things happen with technology. But if you're a big heavy hitter like CrowdStrike, you're open to legal and litigation exposures. But with that being said here, it's just been great. CrowdStrike surged and I believe it's like July, kind of all new time highs. So it's definitely part of what I would say of that gold standard and in terms of a cybersecurity per se. Definitely like love their roadmap. I am huge on deep diving into what I'm buying. I'm big on the consumer aspect and knowledge. Um, if you want to go ahead and click over to the weekly chart here, we'll just kind of deep dive into how I'm analyzing now, especially with the overall pattern that it's drawing currently on this weekly chart here. If we look at it here, it's a stage two cupwood handle with a pivot price of 507.20, which is expensive. I'm not gonna act like it's not. This one's not for everyone. But if you look at that here, it's just pulled back. It's right above that 40-week line, kind of popped up on earnings, and it's been holding there ever since. Definitely have a lot of conviction. It's only trading negative 4.6% off its 52-week high, which isn't much. So I definitely have this in my arsenal. Again, I have to disclose if I own this or not, and I do. So CrowdStrike is definitely something that I have a lot of conviction in. This is more of that long haul for me, definitely from that growth investor standpoint. You know, the Apples, the Amazons, the Nvidias of the world. I put CrowdStrike within that same realm, just because of their, what they can do going forward. If you want to go ahead and kind of zoom out back to normal for me, please. One huge thing here is I'm going to go ahead and just take a look at the earnings. Everything, if you look at in the upper left, you'll see currently the year-over-year estimates. They look great. They're steadily growing earnings per share rise for sure. And then I'm going to look in the lower left portion of the tool and gauge it with those earnings per shares metrics, um, and also kind of that sales growth as well. One negative quarter in April of 25, which isn't too much to worry about in my personal opinion. One negative quarter doesn't define it as long as it's not an astronomical number. I think it's fine. One thing, if you want to look, and I'm gonna go back to my Bob Ross that I mentioned earlier, sheds add some color. One thing that we implemented was the earnings line on the weekly chart here, and if you just look at that, just kind of the trajectory of it, it looks a little bit flat, because it's kind of been steady within that, anywhere between 20% to as low as, negative 8%. I would say 20% or 5% kind of area. That's one thing I'm going to look at is kind of the trajectory it's going in. I definitely want to factor that in. Also here, I'm going to open up the related information panel. As I mentioned to you earlier, I'm going to look at some other lists that this stock is featured on. And as you can see, with the month alone, it's been on quite a few lists just within this first 14 days of the year. I'm sorry, 14 days of the month, excuse me. It was on the near pivot. It broke out. I believe already recent breakouts are 10-day SMA. So this is one thing I'm definitely going to look at. And gauge here. And then one thing I'm going to definitely utilize is that technical tab. I'm going to see how far above or below it is my with my moving averages. Because if I definitely feel like it's finding support, again, I've been in this stock for such a long time. I have a lot of room to play with here, especially with my built conviction. and kind of all the data points it solidifies for me historically, if it definitely um continues in the way it's going, I'll probably scale in, especially that it's approaching that buy area or within that buy area. I'm definitely going to utilize kind of that approach. And then even looking at the relative strength rating over kind of the year. A year ago, I had a relative strength rating of 66, flew over to 90, then back to 80, 89, 73, 83, and 85. So it definitely has some, it definitely kind of, I wouldn't use the word tinkering, but it's definitely kind of fluctuating as a term I'm going to utilize. But again, I have enough conviction, so I definitely want to utilize this here. And then I'm going to go to the industry and sector and just kind of see what other stocks are within this cybersecurity or computer software type area. It's in a good industry group. I'm going to click on view stocks and industry and I'm going to see where it ranks here. Four out of the top 10, which is great. There's 36 stocks within this overall group with Zscaler, PANW, and then CrowdStrike. As I mentioned earlier, when industries move and when industries rotate, it's more than one. I mean, those ones there are some killers as well. They are great. But this is definitely how I'm going to utilize an approach. I know, especially with what CrowdStrike here, the 2025 partner summit, they doubled down on partners first strategy, pushing AI, kind of getting into that realm here. We know that's the new hot thing is AI, but whether we want to believe it or not, especially with the time we live in, the better our infrastructure gets. I believe it's here to stay. But that's what I have on CrowdStrike.
Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I do want to just I want to add a little bit of what I shared earlier. Yes, you kind of like Nico was pointing out kind of the smoothing out of the earnings line. And I did say that there's been heavy turnover with AI where I feels like investors want more and more. But honestly, Nico, I think just kind of be a devil's advocate to even what I just said. I kind of don't hate this. I kind of like this sort of steadiness where it's kind of
Hmm.
smoothing out because the last thing you want is like as a bubble, right? You don't want everything to shoot up and just have massive growth without any, time for it to consolidate. So something like this where it's just kind of steadily increasing over time, I think that's just fine. In fact, I think as far as there's steady news of new products that there's good, there's strong fundamentals and the price action looks okay. Like I don't hate it. I think it's okay. I'm not. I just want to clarify that I'm not saying that everything has to have massive earnings just because we're in this sort of AI world now. So just want to give some kind of color on the other side of the fence, sort of thing. Yeah.
No, I appreciate you, Bob, rossing that up for me to add some color and some insight. Do you have anything care to add? Do you want to go over one more for yourself?
Yeah, I do one last
Sweet.
one to round us out. I think we've been going for about 40 minutes now. Let's end with Chemical. I think that's one that's been on a lot of our lists lately, and I think they talk about on IBD Live as well. So I think you guys will like this because for once, this doesn't have to necessarily do strictly with the AI space, like a lot of the stocks we've covered so far. But just could kind of give you all some context, Cameco, it's essentially one of the world's largest uranium producers, right? And with this sort of new revival of nuclear power, we have more and more demand for it. And it's across the globe, whether it's the US, Japan, even some parts of Europe where they're restarting their nuclear programs or expanding them. We're starting to see some more of this demand for companies like Cameco, where they're able to provide or engage in uranium, right? And when we have this stat line where there's been a surge of uranium prices of greater than 40% year to date, so you can kind of imagine why a company like this would all of a sudden be on the radar, right? A lot of analysts see Cameco as sort of like a picks and shovels sort of play that to provide for clean energy to happen. So I think this is a good one on the radar. It was sitting, I believe, on the some of our strong reports as far as fundamentals, but also for near a break or breaking out. You can see that there was a ascending base. I actually don't see a lot of ascending bases on MarketSurge. Definitely a topic for another day. I think we have a webinar on that. But you got an ascending base here. It's broken out that last week and today, or this week rather, it's pushing beyond the current pivot zone. I do like a lot of the fundamentals I see. Just to point out, we have a strong earnings per share rating. Composite is it's literally in the top 1 percentile as far as outperforming the database of stocks we have here. You do have a nice progression of number of funds. And I do like this up-down volume ratio, which we haven't talked about quite yet. This is basically taking the volume on up days over down days, and you generally want to see more volume on up days for the past 50 days. And we see there's a higher than 1.0 ratio, so we do like to see that as well. Like Nico said, a lot of sector rotation has to do with stocks travel and packs here at IBD. It's not always just one stock. I mean, sometimes that may be the case, but generally speaking, we believe if stocks if the industry group is doing well, then the stocks usually over time generally do well together. So if you see strong numbers like this, especially the relative strength for the stocks in the same pack, that's nice to see also. Um, as far as today, let's just take a look at the current action. Yeah, see it's strong volume today as it continues to move up higher on our daily chart. Relative strength is quite strong, 93. I think it may have been on our blue dot report. Those of you who don't know, I would say this is another great tool to add to your arsenal if you haven't been using it, the blue line or RS line blue dot rather. This is going to give you all our stocks that are currently outperforming the market at a 52-week high. So you could see here it was on the report last week. And it's been outperforming the S&P. It gives us a general idea of how it's faring in the market. So I think that's where we're going to end it. As far as key takeaways, I think we already shared a lot of them, but try to navigate different. My personal key takeaway would be, as you look at more charts, as you dive into more, different industries, I think you'll get a better understanding of maybe some of the sector rotation that Coach Nico has been talking about, but also that we have a lot of different reports you could dive into in here. So maybe if you've been using the same five reports like I usually do, like 250 groups, and maybe these breaking out today near pivot and blue dot, that's fine. Maybe start using some of these other ones like ants list or breakaway gap. Add some more tools to your arsenal. Anything you want to add, Nico, and we'll close out.
No, no. I think I don't. I think we we've talked enough here. I think we shared some great light on some good stocks here, kind of providing you folks with the look behind the way we analyze things here. But yeah, that's all I have. Appreciate your guys' time. Thank you for tuning in with us today.
All right, happy investing, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
Cheers.